What's up guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about 3 of my main strategies for dealing with my addiction to pornography. And something weird about me just saying this out loud. It seems crazy to me that I'm like talking about this openly, but it's really being helpful for me. So in my most recent video, I talked about my main goal, my main pursuit for my life, and that is just to pursue excellence. That's my main priority. I want to pursue my relationship with God. I want to pursue my hope in my life. I want to pursue my joy. And all that's kind of really wrapped up in my relationship with God. However, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I stray from that goal and from that pursuit. And so I need to have a couple safety nets set up so that when I am straying, when I am swerving from that, that I get bounced back onto that track where I want to pursue, what's best for me. And so I'm gonna talk about three strategies that I have. These are really obvious strategies for dealing with addiction, but if they're not applied correctly, I feel like they aren't very successful. And so they've been a hit or miss for me in my life, but so here they are. The first being accountability, the second being guardrails, and then the third being consequences for breaking those guardrails. So just starting off talking about accountability, I'm going to go into more detail about each of these in separate videos, but for now I'm just going to give a brief outline. So with accountability, the core of it is really having somebody who cares about me. I have a couple of guys that they really care about me, they know me, they want to see me succeed, and when it comes down to it, I feel like the requirements for a good accountability partner is someone who cares about me and wants to see me grow, and someone who I meet up with regularly, and we intentionally talk about my addiction or whatever is going on in my life. And so this has been really helpful for me, and I'll talk about it more later on, but accountability has been a real core thing for me in dealing with this. So going on to the second one, guardrails. It's not really a term that everybody uses, but guardrails for me are just rules that I have set up in my life. And they're just small sacrifices that for things that they might trigger me, and if it's a trigger for me, then I set up a guardrail. And so an example of one is, I don't use Instagram if I'm not in a public place. If somebody cannot look over my shoulder and see exactly what I'm looking at on Instagram, I'm not using it. So that's an example of a guardrail. And it's because Instagram in the past has been a starting point for me to go down that road into pornography. And, I can't have that. And so I set up guardrails. So if something triggers me, the core of what a good guardrail is I analyze my failure, and then I set up a rule that'll prevent me from failing in the future. So going on to number 3 now is the consequences. And so a good consequence is something that, and by consequences, I don't mean anything like self-harming. That's not my intention. By consequence, I mean, for me, it's been something that's like both terrified me, but has actually been really good for me. And so just one example of a consequence for me is if I were to break one of my guardrail rules, then I would have to tell somebody new about my addiction. And so it's really simple. It's something that terrifies me, but it's also something that is really just good for me in the long run. And so and these are all kind of interwoven with each other, and I think the real core one is having someone to keep me accountable, and that's the consequences and the guardrails just kind of flow out from that. The other thing about these consequences that I have set up are, it's not a consequence for totally blowing it, for going all the way, into porn or masturbation, or totally, like, doing bad stuff, I guess. It's a consequence for breaking my guardrails. And so, your guardrails are, going back to an analogy of how I like to think about my addiction, is I'm driving on a road, and this road's on the side of the cliff. And your guardrails are there to, if you start to, as long as I'm focused on where I want to go, as long as I'm pursuing goodness and the things that are healthy for me, then there's no problem with me staying on that road, right? If I'm focused, looking ahead, I'm good. But I'm not always focused. I get swerved by the things going on in this world, random things going on in my life, and I need to have these strategies that I'm talking about set up to protect me and to bounce me back on the right path, on going to where I want to go. And so that's exactly what these guardrails are for. If you're on a road and you hit a guardrail, those guardrails are meant to bounce you back onto the road in the direction that you were going before, right? They're meant to stop you from going over the edge. And so think about these guardrails like that. Like they're meant to stop you from, going into destruction. So, and your consequences are for breaking those guardrails. So it's just like another step to ensure, for me to ensure that I'm following my guardrails. Well, thanks for listening. I'm gonna go into more detail about these in the future, and just give these things a little bit of thought. And as you'll see, and you'll start to notice, like the small sacrifices that you might make, the small steps of insecurity that you might make in getting someone to keep you accountable, they're all so worth it, and there's nothing to really be afraid. All my friends that I've told about what's going on in my life, they only have my best intentions in heart. So they want to see me better myself. They want to see me succeed. And so I just encourage you guys to think about these things and apply them. All right.